Testing, testing. Okay, so here's hoping that this thing works and I'm able to sync up the sound. I may or may not be able to do so. Right, so we've got your photo up in Photoshop. Like somebody mentioned, you can mirror the image, and that works great. There are some things here that aren't identical, so you'll need to fix those, but they're pretty easy. So first I'm going to take my mouse, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to unlock that layer right there. And then you'll see all my brushes popped up because now Photoshop is open. I'm going to duplicate that layer by clicking Option and dragging, or you can right-click, go over here, and there's a duplicate layer in here if you wanted to. I think I can do it here, up here at the very top. So I always do that so that I always have the original work on, because eventually I'm going to have to mess with one of the bottom layers, especially in this one. Then I'm going to go up here to a marquee tool, and I'm going to pick, in this case I'm just going to pick a rectangle. Depending on what you're doing, you can pick other shapes, but I'm going to do a rectangle here. I'm not going to go just to the middle, I'm going to go over the middle. Obviously I'm picking the wrong side, so I'm going to pull it over here. So we'll go at this point, and so I'm going to go over the center because I'm going to have to blend it in. As a matter of fact, I actually want to go a little bit further over the center. So we'll do this, and I would hit Command C, which is copy. Oh, and I didn't, hold on. I'm going to do that again. Coming all the way to the edge. And hit Command C and do that. And then, or you can also do, I think you can right click. Layer via copy, you could do that. I suppose I've never used it that way. Can I do it that way? I can. There you go. Right click, layer via copy. Now, from that one, I'm going to hit Command T so that I come up with the one that lets you move it around and do stuff. Or the other one is down here, transform, free transform. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to hit flip horizontal, and we're going to mirror the image. So that's pretty easy. That's the easy peasy part. What I should have done first, actually. So that's great. That would be what you would do if there wasn't anything over her shoulder. Then you would go down here to the bottom, and you would create a layer mask, and then you would use your brush, and I would use, in this case, a pretty large brush-ish with a feather on it, so high opacity on black, and then you would be able to just do this, and you're going to want to make those images fit. Now, I would probably also lower this opacity and move this until those arches match, just like that. And then pull that opacity back up using your brush or B. Oops, on black, always helps. And then you would blend all of this through like this. Now you're going to come into some difficulties because, as you can see, you can't just pull it in like that on that other side, so you're going to have to go a little bit closer. I often find it's better to kind of come out and then go in. So this is why mirroring it won't always just work, because as you can see, to make it match, we still have some of her going there. So we'll have to clone in on that as well to make it fit perfectly. But I'm also going to be scrapping this layer. But that's how we would do it if it were just mirrored and there was nothing on this side and it was all perfect. However, because there is this issue here, of that there is this guy's arm, and then of course we have her arm issue, we have to make this side of it completely clean so that we can enter that into the other side. So that's where having this duplicate layer really comes in handy. So you always have a full layer that's normal. I would just take my clone brush. You want to select that layer that you want to work on, obviously. And from here, this is where it gets a little tricky because her arm goes right through that line. So I would probably actually take that line out because when we're going from here to pull her arm out of the way so that we don't have it in this side, to pull her arm out of the way this way, it's going to be difficult to keep the blur consistent because she's blocked so much of it off. So I'm actually going to select, I'm on my stamp tool. I'm going to select from here. You can select anywhere you want to start and just line up those lines. And you can do it just like that. And it's really simple, just, you know, especially with things like this, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, where there's already a leading line that gives you kind of a goal and an aim. All you have to do is just follow that over. Now, this is where it gets tricky because obviously I can't go right here because it's going to move her arm over. So we're going to actually start in here where I've got a leading line, and I'm going to pull it over. And then again, sometimes it's just, you know, it's quick strokes, but it's detailed oriented. And then we're kind of re-cloning over her, and we're going to go in this way too. It's some, you know, it's just working from one side to another until it matches up. So, and it doesn't have to be perfect because most people, like, we're going to see it because we're doing it, right? So we're going to see all those little imperfections. Like, I can see all these little shadows of where I've had to clone over it. Most people, unless they're a photographer and looking for the problems, like your client's friends, they're going to see, and I'm just making that worse, they're going to look at this and go, oh, wow, that's really cool. How did you get the bridge so clear? And they're not even going to notice those little imperfections because they're looking at the picture as a whole. So because of that, a lot of times when I'm working close like this and I'm like, okay, that little imperfection, I'm going to come here and I'm actually going to bring this in here because I also don't want, I may actually go even further into her because it doesn't matter what this side looks like in that respect. Because I can't obsess. If otherwise I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, this picture's so awful, I can't do it. Gotta love our egos, right, as creatives. So we're just going to keep doing this. I can pull this from here and pull it down. And again, we're just doing up and down from the top and from the bottom, trying to blend where we're taking out her arm so that when you pull it back, again, we're going to have her arm going through this on the other side, but so that it doesn't look blatantly obvious that we've taken something out there to the average Joe on the street, because that's really kind of what we're aiming for. So at this point, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be blended and, you know, kind of there. So now here's where the hard part's going to come in because, again, as we saw, her head, when we pulled this one in, her head is also there. So we're going to have to kind of blend this. We're going to have to, now we're in the process of making stuff up because there is no data for that area of what's going to be behind her. What I will probably do is take, because it's okay to have a little color from behind her, on my side, I'm going to actually take it from over here. And I'm just going, it's going to look scary, I'm just going to take out her head altogether as much as possible. So this is what I'm going to aim for. A great trick that I've found is if you go, there's this panel called the Clone Source panel. I only learned about this last year, and it changed my life when it came to stuff like this, because you're like, oh, how do I get it? Because you want to mirror it. This actually mirrors the clone tools. So if I'm doing it from here, it's going to mirror it to where if I take it from over, so I'm going to take it from here, and if I start here, and I'm going to line up that line, you'll see that my clone source little arrow and my clone are going opposite directions. If I go back and forth there, you can see it. And so that allows me to make that mirror image so that these two things actually match. So that's a great way to kind of create that, oops, I did it, see, I forget sometimes that I'm on that way, even though I'm doing it. So that allows me to kind of just mirror that down. And even then, if I wanted to go over here and I was like, you know what, I want to take out that red shirt altogether, I can say, I'm going to start from here and do it over here. And then we can create a background that works perfectly. Now, down the center, we know that it's this big line, so I can turn off the mirroring and bring that down. And then that's going to give us, now that we've got something to work with, we can work on it that way. So now when we clone, when we go to the other side and we mask it, that won't mess in with all that. So now we're going to try and get, so now we've rid the guy's head on that side. We also need to get rid of this arm. So now we're going to do this. Sometimes I hit the wrong key and I bring up my pen tool when I'm making my brush smaller. And we're just going to erase his arm and shoulder out from around her shoulder. Just like that. I can move my brush purse, it's over there. So basically, we're just trying to get this to be, and at this point, these are all kind of equally blurred, though that just made that worse. So we can just kind of go in like this and just clean up this back area really, really easy. And I'm taking my time because I'm also wanting to, you know, this will be a finished product in the end. I'm not trying to do anything weird. So we can see how the light here is going to come down, so we might want to pull that down a little bit. We might want to lower the opacity, kind of blend this line down. So we're going to pull the white down and kind of just blend it so that it looks more natural. I'm also trying to think while I'm doing this. Normally if it were just me and not talking, I would just do it and not have to like think about how to explain my process. So normally this would be a lot faster. And once you get the hang of it, for things like this, it goes really fast. Like this is normally like, yeah, maybe a 5-minute edit. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but yeah, a 5-minute edit would probably be pretty quick. And it's okay. I would probably just leave her hair in that respect. I mean, you could mask off and clear up all the way into here. I don't know how far in did we see her? All the way into her? No, so let's see, if we brushed that, brushed it off to where we've got her the way we want. Then, yeah, so we want to make sure, we'll need to remove her. Where's her hair ending? There we go. Her hair ends there. So that's the amount that we need to take off on the other side. So I will need to take off into her face a little bit. So, stamp tool. And, oops, I'm still on only 50% opacity. Now we're going to go back up to 100% because now we're just going to be pulling it in. Again, this doesn't have to blend quite so much because it's going to be behind her hair. You're not going to notice it as a general rule. And we'll come in here again because we're going to need to make up the fact that we also have to cut out this section right here in her arm, in the masked side. And so we want to make sure that we have plenty of area there that will be masked off. And again, just kind of blending that. And I don't really like this dark thing here, so I'm gonna try and lighten that up. Just pull this over here that way so that it doesn't kind of stand out quite so much. If you hear jingling in the background, that is my puppy. Well, yeah, she's still a puppy. And then, so we've got this there. This is not, I don't like that, but I'll fix it in a minute. See how it looks once we kind of get that over. And we're going to just bring all of this in. I like to work from different directions so that it kind of blends it and looks a little bit more, you don't end up having really straight lines. It can blend a little bit more. I'm also noticing that if we look here at the top, now that I'm a little bit closer, there's more of a direct line here. And I don't like how this blends. So I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to mirror my clone tool. I'm going to go from here. I'm going to go straight across to there. And I'm just going to bring that down to kind of just give that more of a straight look the way that we're seeing here. Now in here, again, we don't know what that's going to look like. So it doesn't really, nobody's probably going to notice or care. You can just kind of bring it up if you think it would be higher or lower. And you just blend it to where, pull my opacity to like 30% and just kind of blend because these lines are a little bit obvious. So now we have this side that's cleared. Because her hip is popping on this side, it's going to go a little bit further than that side. So I'm going to do a little bit more of the cloning all the way down her body. And this really is just to make sure that when we flip it, we don't see her. And there's, it's a seamless kind of, there's no question that is, that there was nothing there because that's, we're tricking that eye. So now I'm going to grab my marquee tool up back over here. And again, I'm going to take a little bit more than halfway so that we have that room to blend. And I'm going to copy Command C or actually we figured out we can do layer via copy. So we can do that, and then we're going to do Command T to transform it, and we're going to right click, flip horizontal. We're just going to move it over. You can move it before or after. I'm just moving here because it's easy. Hit enter, or you can hit the little check mark that's up here. And we have that mix. So again, lower the opacity so that you can line up these layers perfectly, because it's the arches that are going to really make the difference between those two and help you blend it. And we're going to get rid of that second flag as well, obviously. Or we don't need to because it won't be a second flag if you're not making it opaque. So now again, we're going to go with the brush tool. And I'm going to go with black because we're brushing it off. And now we can just blend this up, and you're going to see that it looks completely the same. Now what we need to do is, because you see if I'm masking off here, you could have just flipped the entire one, to be fair. I took a copy, but we can turn off that layer underneath, and we can mask her off, like so. Now we can decide to keep this line at this point because there's nothing there, so we can just mask that off. And then if we want to, oops, masking off her hands and down the middle of her body. Right, so now we're going to go with white, and I'm going to mask back on where I cloned from the other side. So now we're going to do this. And we can just clone around, or we can just mask off real close up to her hair. A little bigger so we can get a little bit brighter stroke. Now in this case, I didn't actually, here's where sometimes, well, I'll show you in a second. We're going to just go real tight into here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit again. I'm using Command Scroll. I don't know what, if you're working on a PC, what your difference is. I can't remember now on the top of my head. But we can go right in tight there. Again, I'm using a really high feather, so it's at 100% or at 0% hardness. Sometimes what I will do, actually, I have a preset here that's automatically on hard. I'm using a Wacom tablet, but you can definitely, so you'll notice that if I press harder, it gets bigger. But you can definitely do this until about 2 months ago. I did all of this exact same stuff with a mouse. So I've just been using my tablet over the last 2 months because of my carpal tunnel, and it makes it a lot easier. And again, sometimes you have to go in and out, and I find it works really better. And you just mask off where it was there, and with a hard edge, it gives you that clean edge and makes it look more realistic to the eye. If it's feathered, people are like, oh, wait a minute, what's... Sometimes you can cheat it, and it looks great, and that you need that kind of feather to make it kind of blend in. Other times like this, where she is quite a bit more obviously in focus in the background, if you feather it, then she looks put in there. Like, she looks blurry, and there's something will look off, and it'll make people look for that problem a little bit more, in general. So, yeah, you can see, we're just going right in close here so that we can get all of the dark. My goal is to just get all the dark of that lady that's behind her off. And then where it was feathering in, you can see where it wasn't quite as heavy. Remove the foot. It's here. And all the way in. And now we're going to go... See, this is where when we did all the way in, this is where it comes in handy. Because before, her arm would have been in the way. So we can go in here and really just tighten her up. You could slim her here if you wanted. Instant liquefying. But I try not to do that as a general rule. Unless requested, and then it's a different matter. So trying to put mascara on and talk, right? When you're doing something tight like that. I'm trying to do these little corners, and I'm like, I can't talk and do this at the same time. Because you don't want to take too much. You want to just, you know, there sometimes is a color cast from behind them, but you also don't want to take away that little bit of a highlight that's behind her arm, right in there. So you want to, some people will just kind of go and like, well, I made her arm a little skinnier. And that's totally great. And in some cases, you can totally fudge it like that. I did that a little bit up here, where, you know, you can't really tell. I think it's like right in here. But in a lot of cases, people are going to notice if their arms are a lot different. It's also, proportions matter, and you can see that too. So, whoops, wrong brush. So, you know, you want to just kind of clean any edges up here. I don't like the way that that worked there, so I'm just going to come back with a white brush and brush off the mask. Brush it back on. There we go. Okay, so now other than this kid's shoulder there, which this is where it comes into the blending of the two. So now we have our original one that brushed her off, and we've done this side, and we've added that. But we still have that shoulder. That's a problem. So here we're going to add a mask to that one too. And I'm actually going to just completely invert that mask. If you go, I don't know where your properties are. Mine are right here to the right of the screen. And you can see the properties of that layer mask. You go here and you can invert it. It's going to go black. So there's none of that layer showing. But I want some of the layer to show. So I'm actually going to come in here. And this is where we can decide how much. I do notice that on this other one that I need to blend it a little bit more. So I'm going to blacken it. We're going to blend it here a little bit. I don't know what is going on here. We're going to blend that. Did I? Okay. Must have accidentally drawn on something below. No, I don't want to move that around. Okay, so we're just going to blend this mask of the top layer in. I need my brush to be on a feather so it'll blend. And then we're just going to blend that edge. And yeah, that's the only place where it was really noticeable. So now we've got the problem of this side being seen. We're going to invert that mask. There we go, now that I fixed whatever it was that was drawn on below it. And we're going to brush it on. So at this point, we're just going to start erasing. And now I'll just erase her little flyaways there. And we're going to erase these people. We can keep them if you want. I'm going to erase them so that we have that kind of clean look. We can erase that there. Now here's where you have to kind of decide how much of him you want to show. Do you want to show that there's a shadow behind her hair or not? You may not want to. I'm going to pull back to my hard edge to pull right up next to her. And we can do something like that. And so when you pull back, it just looks like her hair is behind her. And you don't have the shadow of the guy next to her. Now, one thing that you'll notice, and this is one thing that can kind of be annoying sometimes, is that when you've been cloning and everything, you kind of lose that texture that's in there. So what I do sometimes with something like this is you can pick the actual layer and not the layer mask. And you can then use your patch tool, and you can actually kind of sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. And you get that texture back, just like that. Oops, I actually liked it better the first time. Did I? We'll see. Yeah, and then you can just kind of bring that texture back in by pulling in texture from somewhere else. It's going to keep the same coloring, but you're going to get that texture that makes it look more like it should be there. So, yeah, I mean, that's how I would do it. If you look back, you can now see the whole picture. There's no one behind her. It's all kind of blurred off. I would then, so from here, we'll go here, and I'm just going to flatten the image. Discard the hidden layer, so that's that one layer that was wonky that first time. And then I'm going to do another duplicate layer. And this is where I'm just going to go in and fine tune. So like I don't really like the way that this here is kind of that way. So I'm going to pull that over here. I'm going to get, I don't think that's going to work because it's going to pull that shadow. Yeah. So I'm just going to do this and pull it, you know, things like that, where it just evens that color out a little bit. And then I can also do this just to get the texture back. I don't want to, if you use the patch tool a lot, you'll learn that if you go into something like that where it's a different color, it's lighter, it will pick up that and kind of halo it. It's weird. So yeah, so you can do something like that and just kind of do it, because I mean, it's not perfect, but most people, when they're going to look at it, they're just going to think that that's the way the bridge was behind them, and you're going to go, great, not be able to tell the difference. In this case, I can tell really bad because that's like the wrong thing. So we're going to pull it from here, I think. There we go. I think that's better because we don't have up and down lines happening. In this case, you could maybe do something like this to try and pull in. Oh, no, not. There we go. And then those lines are going the right direction. So yeah, so you just, you know, you can play around it from there, but that is how I would do it. Now, if you want this one off, all you would have had to have done would be to have done what we did over here. So actually, I'm going to go back up. I did all that work. Sometimes, I go back, and you know, you once you looked at it and you're like, oh wait, that's what I was going to do, and you can just take that off that way. I'm going to use a brush with a feather though. Feather it in around her arm like that, and then we can pull it like this all the way down. And you don't need to, I mean, you could have that whole side open and whatnot, but for the most part, you're just trying to get rid of any kind of visible line between where you're adding in the new layer to the old layer. There we go. Now we're going to flatten it. Like so. We'll go back to our patch tool and kind of pull these like we were doing, since I undid that from when I was doing that. And pull this like here. Now you can make that really close to her and try and get it like right up next to her, but for the most part, you're gonna fix it just like that. And there you go. Finished image. If you have any questions or if I talk too fast, just let me know. Thank you.